Ladies and gentlemen, today I stand before you to recount a moment that sent shockwaves through the political world, a moment where former President Donald Trump, known for his bravado, his defiance, and his iron grip on the political narrative, found himself at the receiving end of a verbal barrage so stunning it left even his staunchest defenders speechless. It all unfolded when Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, never one to mince words, dropped a bombshell on Trump that pierced through the bravado and hit a nerve so raw, even Trump, the king of comebacks, couldn't hide his rage. Now, we all know that Trump has weathered countless controversies from legal indictments to political betrayals, but what happened on that stage was different. Jasmine Crockett, a freshman Democrat from Texas, already respected for her sharp wit and unapologetic fire, stood her ground and delivered what can only be described as a brutal truth wrapped in unshakable composure. The moment she mentioned Melania, the former First Lady, and peeled back the curtain on what many had speculated but few dared to say aloud, the energy in the room shifted. You could feel it. She didn't scream, she didn't gloat, she simply laid out facts, observations, and pointed remarks that Trump couldn't deflect. She began by referencing the growing list of legal troubles Trump is facing: indictments in multiple jurisdictions, allegations of election interference, business fraud, and even mishandling of classified information. But then, without warning, Crockett pivoted. Her voice steady, she said, "Let's not forget that while Trump tries to paint himself as a victim of political persecution, the real cracks are showing closer to home in his own marriage." The room hushed. Eyes darted around. No one expected her to go there, but she did. She brought up the fact that Melania Trump has been conspicuously absent from his campaign trail not once, not twice, but consistently. She noted that during his most recent indictment, as Trump stood alone outside the courthouse, puffed up with rage and defiance, Melania was nowhere in sight. This isn't just a political unraveling, Crockett continued, it's a personal one. How can a man lead a nation when he can't even keep trust in his own home? The audience gasped. Trump, known for his showmanship, fumbled with his notes, visibly flustered. And it didn't stop there. Crockett cited sources close to the former First Lady, reports that she has grown tired of the circus, of the legal woes, of the media frenzy that follows Trump like a shadow. She reminded the audience that Melania renegotiated her prenuptial agreement in the midst of Trump's presidency, a move that spoke volumes about where her priorities lay. It's not about loyalty anymore, Crockett said. It's about protection. Melania is looking out for herself and her son because she knows better than anyone where this train is headed. Trump, who had been smirking in the beginning, suddenly lost that trademark sneer. His face tightened. He interrupted, shouting, "You don't know a damn thing about my family." But Crockett didn't flinch. She stood calmly, almost empathetically, and replied, "You're right. I don't know your family, but America has eyes, Mr. Trump. And what they're seeing is a man unraveling, not just politically, but personally, a man who demands loyalty without offering any in return." The silence that followed was deafening. It was one of the rare moments when Trump didn't have a punchline ready, didn't have a nickname to sling back. For once, his usual bag of insults and distractions failed him. The former president, who had steamrolled debates, mocked opponents, and bulldozed through scandals, was cornered by the one thing he couldn't: tweet away the truth about the people closest to him walking away. Political analysts were stunned. Commentators on both sides admitted Crockett struck a nerve few dared to touch. It wasn't just about marital gossip, it was about exposing the hypocrisy in Trump's narrative. He has always preached strength, loyalty, and family values, but Crockett laid bare the contradiction between that image and the reality of a fractured home life, a wife growing more distant, and a child shielded from the storm that seems to follow him everywhere. Some conservatives tried to spin it as a low blow, an attack on the sanctity of family, but the damage was already done. Trump's reaction said more than Crockett ever could. He was rattled, thrown off his rhythm. For someone who thrives on control and spectacle, being caught off guard is the ultimate humiliation. In the days that followed, Trump's team scrambled to do damage control, Statements were released claiming Melania supports him 100%. Old photos were shared online as proof of unity. But none of it felt authentic. The cracks were now public, and they weren't just cosmetic, they were structural. The moment Crockett spoke those words, she changed the tone of the conversation. She reminded the world that behind the bluster, the bravado, and the golden tower, there's a man who's not just losing in the courtroom, he's losing at home. And maybe that's why it hit so hard. Because for all his tough talk, all his bullying tactics, what Jasmine Crockett revealed was a simple truth. Even the most powerful men can be brought down not just by judges and juries, but by silence at the dinner table, by a cold shoulder from the one person who used to stand beside them, by the knowledge that the empire they built is slowly crumbling from within. So yes, Trump lost it, not because of a court verdict, not because of a news headline, but because a woman stood on that stage, looked him in the eye, and told him a truth he's tried desperately to ignore, that his greatest loss might not be political at all. It might be personal. And that is something no campaign, no spin, and no amount of bluster can fix. When Jasmine Crockett stood up and delivered her remarks, there was one moment that truly shifted the atmosphere in the room. The moment she said, "How can a man lead a nation when he can't even keep trust in his own home?" That single line didn't just sting, it echoed. It reached past political ideologies and straight into something more fundamental: integrity. Leadership isn't about how loudly you talk or how many people cheer your name. It's about the ability to hold together the very foundation of what you claim to protect: your principles, your commitments, and yes, your family. Crockett wasn't trying to shame Trump about his marriage for sport. She wasn't being petty. She was making a broader, far more profound point about what real leadership requires, and how, in Trump's case, the cracks at home reflect the cracks in everything else he touches. Trust is the invisible glue that holds all human relationships together. In politics, it's the trust between leaders and the public. In marriage, it's the trust between partners. Crockett's words forced everyone to confront an uncomfortable truth: that the man who demands absolute loyalty from everyone around him, from his aides to his supporters, has seemingly failed to nurture the one relationship that depends on mutual respect and care above all else. When she pointed out Melania's absence from key events, when she reminded us that Melania had to renegotiate her prenuptial agreement in the White House, when she noted that Trump appears increasingly isolated even among his inner circle, what she was really doing was drawing a line from personal failure to political instability. She was asking, without shouting, how do you lead millions when you can't hold the trust of one? This hit hard not just because it was personal, but because it was real. Anyone watching the political landscape knows Trump is surrounded by lawsuits and accusations. But Jasmine Crockett didn't have to mention any of that directly in this line. She didn't need a list of indictments or a montage of outbursts. With that one sentence, she framed Trump's chaos not as a political witch hunt, but as a reflection of a man who has lost control over the very things he used to boast about: power, unity, family. She pointed out that this isn't just about Trump, the politician, anymore. It's about Trump, the man, and whether that man is still capable of holding together what matters most. Let's talk about what that really means. We often see powerful figures as separate from the rest of us. But leadership, especially in the public sphere, mirrors character. The way you treat the people closest to you says everything about how you'll treat the people you claim to serve. If your own home is built on shaky ground, how can you possibly ask others to trust you with theirs? Crockett's comment wasn't just about Melania or even just about Trump. It was about accountability. It was about the hypocrisy of preaching family values while your own family drifts silently away from the spotlight, unwilling to stand beside you. And Trump knew it. That's why he reacted the way he did. His usual tactic is to laugh things off, throw out an insult, or dominate the space with bravado. But not this time. When Crockett said those words, "How can a man lead a nation when he can't even keep trust in his own home?" he didn't have a comeback, because you can't tweet your way out of a cold reality. You can't bully your way out of someone telling the truth, and you definitely can't fake the loyalty of someone who no longer wants to stand beside you. The power of that line also lies in its universal resonance. We all understand what trust means. We all know what it feels like when someone breaks it, or when we're forced to step away from someone we once believed in. Whether you're liberal or conservative, rich or poor, famous or anonymous, the idea that trust is the cornerstone of leadership is something we can all agree on. And Crockett reminded everyone in that moment that Trump's greatest failing may not be found in any courtroom, but in the silence of his home, in the absence of a partner who once played the role of First Lady and now appears largely uninterested in playing any role at all. And it wasn't a cheap shot, it was a strategic truth. Because once you peel away the campaign rallies, the slogans, the spin machines, what you have left is character. Who is this person when the cameras are off? Who is this person when they're not giving a speech or signing executive orders? And if the people who know him best, his wife, his closest confidants, no longer show up for him, that says something far more damning than anything written in a legal document. Crockett's statement was also a warning. It was a call for voters to look deeper, not just at Trump, but at any leader. What do their personal choices say about their public decisions? How do they treat those who can't offer them votes or money or airtime? If a man builds an empire only to find himself standing alone at the top, what was it all for? Her words demanded that we not just look at the headlines, but at the humanity. Because the truth is, when someone begins to lose the trust of the people they built their world around, it's often the beginning of the end. So when she said, "How can a man lead a nation when he can't even keep trust in his own home?" she wasn't just ending an argument, she was opening a wound. A deep one that Trump himself has tried to cover up with distractions, noise, and denial, but Crockett didn't let him escape. She held up a mirror and forced him to look at something he couldn't dismiss. That behind all the lights, behind the podiums and the rallies, there might be a man deeply, painfully alone. And maybe that's what makes this moment so unforgettable. Because Crockett didn't just confront Trump. She stripped away the myth and left us staring at the man. A man who, no matter how powerful he once was, is now surrounded not by loyalty, but by doubt. And that's a truth no slogan can fix.